Hey folks, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to share with you some techniques that you can use to make unusual or interesting vehicles. The non-standard variety, if you're making something that's more sci-fi or something that's more techy, futuristic, what have you, you can use this technique. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to work with the 5100 pixel wide by 3300 pixel tall canvas at 600 pixels per inch. I'll go ahead and click create, make a brand new layer. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the glyph tool or the glyph window here. Let's pop that open. And what I want to do is I want to actually use this particular font. So I've got Reuben, and I'm going to make sure that my type tool is set. And I'll lay it down somewhere here. Delete the Lorem Ipsum text and just click on this. So I've got this really weird, unusual shape. And I'm going to orient it in such a way that it is going to look something like this. And I've never used this symbol before to make a vehicle, so this is going to be an interesting challenge for me. First thing I'm going to do here is to the right on my layers panel, I'm going to right click and choose rasterize type. That allows me to then right click and choose perspective. And so I can have a 3/4 front or 3/4 back perspective on this particular object. It's more interesting, honestly, when you have a 3/4 front, 3/4 back perspective. Let's make a duplicate, and then the bottommost layer, let's just shift it out, and we'll use Command U to go ahead and make it a little bit darker so we can actually see what we're working with. So what we're going to do is we're just going to position this as follows, right? This is going to be more of like something that resembles a motorcycle. If you want to make it wider, you can also do that too. You can just simply extend this, and you can also drop the scale, right? So let's actually make it a little bit thicker. I'm not going to make a motorcycle. I'm going to make something that's a little bit thicker than a motorcycle. And I'll just go ahead and stretch this so I can actually see some of it in the back, and I'll hit enter. And now what we're going to do is we're going to merge those two layers, and then we'll hit the V key to get to our move tool. And if we type a number like 5, we get 50% opacity. And then I'll make a brand new layer above that. And this is the layer that I'm going to then draw on top of. And so what I can consider here is that this shape will help me come up with something unusual. And we're just basically working within some kind of a bounded box here. That's the reason why we actually used our perspective tool to give us the right perspective. So the reason why I scaled the glyph in the back is it allows me to go ahead and construct with proper perspective. So this is a 2-point perspective box, and actually this is probably more correct. So with that box, now we can start to carve out our shapes. We can use this form. I'll just make a new layer here. I'll just work with my contours and see what we have. And let's see. So we're making a car, right? So I'm not going to necessarily use every single part of this glyph. But what I do like is this kind of swooping line here. I want to use that for my vehicle. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll just extend this down. And we'll consider our front. I'll get rid of my guidelines now. And let's go ahead and put a line there. And then we'll just extend this out like so. So now I've got basically a very interesting, unusual shape. And the more I look at this, this kind of reminds me of maybe the back of a car. So I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. So let's now drop the opacity on this layer just so I can go ahead and draw on top of it. So I'll have maybe some kind of a trunk. And I want to use that swooping line somehow. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it. Don't forget we have bumpers. Have some kind of license plate. Maybe I'll use this curve to, denote my tail lights, right? And again, I'm making something that's futuristic, so this doesn't have, a realistic counterpart to it. This is just me coming up with something that looks interesting or unusual. And maybe the bumpers kind of wrap around the form like so. And this could be a space vehicle. It could be a vehicle with wheels. I don't exactly know what I'm making here just yet, but that's part of the fun of it. And then we'll throw in a wheel well. And let's just extend this area over like so. So now what I can do is I can hide the glyph layer, and let's see what I can do with this. I can say, okay, that's light. Maybe there's another light on the opposite side. Maybe we have some kind of an entryway or something, door that we can use to get into this car. So this little swooping shape here, not exactly sure how I'm going to use that. What I might do is just get rid of that. And then maybe this becomes like some kind of a thruster, right? So we have maybe some jet propulsion. And there's really no wrong answer. You just have to come from a space of imagination and creativity. All right, let's just go ahead and throw in like some kind of a console here. So there's going to be some kind of a steering mechanism. There might be some buttons. Notice that I only start dealing with the details once I get the main form in. I'll keep saying that over and over again in my videos, because I think that's really an important concept to understand. If you want to get better at drawing, you need to think about what the overall shape is and establish a three-dimensional form. Now, we might have some like steps or something that people can actually use to get into this vehicle. It's kind of high up, right? And then our wheel wells, I'll just go ahead and denote it like this. And then, of course, the wheels, we'll go ahead and extend those down. Let's make this somewhat like a hot rod, right? So we'll have one wheel here, and then we'll have another wheel that is going to be thicker. That will be here. And when you're drawing wheels, what I consider is the thickness on the tire that's closest to the viewer is going to be greater than the thickness on the opposite side. This is going to give our tire a sense of depth. And I talk about that in another video when we're talking about vehicles, so do check that out. And let's see, I'll just formalize some of my lines here. And now we can turn off the guidelines and see what we have to work with. We can go ahead and throw a little bit of a shadow underneath. Fill in that space. And so we've got one vehicle here. And of course, we can add windshields and all the other fun stuff. Now, the reason why this line's not going straight and it's actually going at an angle is because this is also going to conform to the same vanishing point on our right. So it might be something like that, right? And then you can have, let's say that this has some kind of a, covering, like those old school coverings, a little bit of sci-fi, but also with some retro stuff, right? This is just a thing that goes over that creates your, your cabin area. So we've got this really interesting vehicle. Let's do one more. So that was the first vehicle, and I'll just move this off to the side, and I'll show you the shape that we used to create it. And if you stick around until the end of the video, I'm going to share some techniques on how to actually position a person sitting in something that's more like a motorcycle or something along those lines. So let's go ahead and create, you know what? This looks kind of cool. I will use my glyphs and I'll pick, let's pick another shape that's going to be kind of interesting and weird. you know what? I'll go with the lowercase m. That seems like a really interesting shape to work with. So again, the process that I'm going to use is basically I need to rasterize it. So I'll rasterize the type, and I will then right click and choose perspective. And really exaggerate your perspective. And then make a copy of it. Take the bottom copy, use the lightness and drag it down so that way you have some sense of thickness, and then you can also use the transform tool and scale. This helps you establish that bounding box for your perspective. Merge the two together, drop the opacity, and so now I've got this basic box here. I'll just go ahead and draw this in a new layer. We've got something that looks like this, right? That's establishing our proper perspective. So if you're struggling with drawing something in 2-point perspective, this technique can be very, very helpful. And something I've talked about in my other videos is, you can sometimes set up grid lines by just finding the midpoint between two segments and connecting them. So here's a midpoint between the top and the middle. And here's another midpoint between the top and the middle. And you can use that to go ahead and create a grid. This is another really, really important concept to practice. So I've got something that looks like that. All right, so now that I've got that 2-point perspective established, let's carve into that shape a little bit. And let's go ahead and make a place where someone can actually sit. Now, with this glyph technique, you can use whatever part of the glyph you want. You're not beholden to using every single thing if you don't want to. You can just pick the stuff that makes the most sense. So in this case, I'm carving out this new shape here that's going to be the seat for whatever this vehicle is. And then maybe down below, I like those sharp spikes at the bottom here, so I'll go ahead and work with that. And then I'll bring this curve in. I'll put that in like so. And this kind of is going to be somewhat of a motorcycle that I guess doesn't show the wheels fully, and it's not going to be something that you can easily steer. This is going to be one of those like light cycle type of bikes. So this is what I have here. From there, I can start adding, other elements. Let's just say that I have a light. Let's say that I have some kind of a windshield. And let's go ahead and throw some handlebars. And what I'll do is, I like to, when I'm drawing wheels, and I'll just pick a different color for this so you can see what I'm doing better. But even if the wheels are going to be partially concealed, I like to still draw the full form. Don't forget, wheels have thickness, and you're going to do the same thing on this side here too. Now, how do you make those big sweeping circles without using a circle template? You just have to use your entire arm when you draw. That means you're going to be moving your shoulder. And there's this wheel. So we're going to see a part of that wheel popping up. So this is like a really weird, unusual, different type of vehicle here. And now let's formalize this. Let's just drop the opacity. We'll still work with our blue. Maybe this has like a little kind of cow catcher type of thing. We call them cow catchers because when train conductors were taking their trains out into the wild blue yonder, cows would sit on the tracks. And so these little triangular shaped doodads would push the cows without, hurting them. They would just kind of just move them away so the train can continue moving. All right, we'll put some kind of a fork here that the wheel will tie into. And so you can see some of our wheels are already concealed. We'll draw the handlebar. And then here, let's break this shape up here too. We'll add a little bit of curvature. Let's add some engine pipes. You know, when you're adding some interesting forms like this breaks up the drawing and makes it, you know, when you have a lot of very simple shapes and you have some repeating shapes that are a little bit more complex, it just adds more visual interest to your drawing, right? So I've got that. Maybe, you know, like if they were changing the tires on these things, you would have some panels that would kind of, you know, be removable, right? And there's, of course, thickness there, so we can hide that layer. And there's our wheel. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you how I approach drawing a character sitting in something like a motorcycle, because I think that's something that a lot of folks struggle with. And I struggle with this too. Didn't have a real way of doing it. I've seen a lot of other artists drawing characters on vehicles like motorcycles and stuff, but there's not, I haven't seen any guidance on how to do that. So I'm just going to share how I figured it out, and you can see if it works for you. So I'm going to first of all make a brand new layer, pick a different color here so we can see what I'm working with. Right now the seat is really low and I don't know where this guy or a gal's feet are going to be. So let's assume that I'm going to draw one more thing here, just because as I think out loud, I want to make sure that I have a place for my character's feet. So I'll just put a little post in here. This is the post that the person's foot will rest against, okay? So just keep that in mind. I'll just go ahead and indicate that here. And with a different color red, the way I approach drawing a character sitting on a motorcycle is, first of all, think about where the torso is going to be. So in some of my other videos, I've talked about the fact that you can approximate the torso as just basically a trapezoidal shape, right? Something that looks like that. So in this case, we're seeing this little end post right here is where one of the legs will come out from, right? And the torso is the most important thing because, or this bar here that represents the pelvis is the most important thing, because then you can work out from that, and then you can draw your knee, and then you can draw a foot, right? And then from there, you can work backwards and draw your hands. And you can say, all right, the hands might be something like that. And then you've got the head. And you can make it cartoony, or you can make it, you know, more realistic. I'll just do a little variation of a certain motorcycle wielding flaming skull type of character, right? And so now I've got this character sitting in here, and I can go ahead and make some adjustments here. If I want to lower him down, I can go ahead and do that. So now I've drawn the character, you know, on the bike. So start with where the pelvis is and establish where the feet are going to be. And then you can work your way up towards the other elements. That's like your baseline before you start adding the other figures in. And then once you do that, draw your hands and then work backwards from the hands to the chest and the head and so forth. So hope you found this video to be useful. As always, thank you for watching these videos. I do appreciate every like and subscribe and comment. Please keep those coming. Let me know what you find value in, or any questions or wonderings you have, and I'll do my level best to help you out. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.